What's up, everyone? Tyler Tamboline here, aka ToeTagginTambo, back for our first edition of the season of First Look here on the Ship It Nation YouTube station. Got my guy Hoopster here with me. Going to be breaking it all down. We'll bring up the stone. We'll go through all of the games for week 2. Hopefully you had a good week 1. We just popped off with the week 1 Monday Night Football video. A lot of huge sweats last night. Shout out to our guy Shalhoub. Scarface was up there as well. A bunch of members with some huge ROI nights, some big finishes, but we kind of needed the last little bit to happen. Unfortunately, it was Garrett Wilson, of all people, letting us down in the community, but still lots of big wins, lots of big scores out there. Hoopster, I'll bring you in. It was an awesome week 1 all around over at Ship It Nation, yourself included, almost a milli maker there. You had the run in the big one on Sunday, but what's going on, my friend? Week 1's done. We're on to week 2.
Yeah, it seems like the last 5 days were just absolutely insane. Like just looking back, it just seems like an absolute blur. I mean, just nonstop action every single day. I had the Thursday night game, went to the Friday game. Saturday there was college football, MMA going. Sunday the full slate, and then yesterday tops it off with the 49ers and Jets game, and then we get the news about an hour and a half before lock that Christian McCaffrey is actually going to be out and not in. So there's a mad scramble, update the content, a lot of conversations in Discord, and worked out for a lot of people. Obviously had some big wins last night, big wins on every slate over the course of the entire weekend for the Ship It Nation community. And, one thing I always say, and it remains true, and it's one thing in life, the older I get, the more I just really believe in this, is like good things happen to good people. And we have a team of good people. We have a community of good people. So a lot of good things have already happened. And I just strongly feel that more good is heading our way. So back to the grind, really no days off NFL season. I know you did the review show yesterday as well as the showdown content, but we're here going to start the process for week 2. Looking at some pricing, looking at some games, and see what we can extract, and continue to grind and work all week building up to Sunday.
Yeah, new thing when we do these shows, obviously breaking down the content side of it more than the marketing side for Ship It Nation, just to show you guys. But over the weekend, appreciate the support at 7.69K. Nice. So let's get to 8K. Going to do some more giveaways when we get there. Hoop mentioned it really quickly. If you guys are talking about, I know some people said, where was it at here? I'm hoping for a better week this week. The first week for me was a little rough. That happens to all of us, but you can go here down to the takedown breakdown. Myself and Nades, our guy, we broke down a lot of week 1 stuff that maybe you can take some stuff away for week 2. I know a lot of people said there was ways to use the tools. There's ways that they thought about it. We looked at some very successful DFS players that had big weeks that you can find some takeaways from there. So go check that out. Make sure you subscribe to this channel right now. And a little contest for this show we're going to run throughout the season. I'm going to get to the Big Guy Listener League here in a second, just so you guys know all the details of what we're up to. But real quick, if you subscribe to the channel, and then you can't do this live, but after the video's over, leave a comment of the quarterback you think will be the highest scoring quarterback on DraftKings for the main slate. The highest scoring quarterback for the main slate. Any winners will be put into a draw, and we're going to give them a free month, including Shiptimizer at Ship It Nation. Real quick on this one, just so you guys see, the Rake-Free Lister League. Not enough people know about this. Not enough people have this anymore. I actually don't know if anybody has it anymore, to be honest, over on DraftKings. So for anybody looking for sustainability, good contest selection, breaking it down where there's a solid payout structure, 1,000 to first, 100 for 9th through 12th, and then a $10 min cash on a $5 5 max that's rake-free. There is less than 1,000 spots left, and it just came out. So of the 1,500, already over 500 are full. Just go over to my X account at ToeTagginTambo. Click the link. We'll see how many we can get in there by the end of the show. We're at 531 right now. I'll circle back to it at the end of the show. But Hoop, we'll start it off with that just real quick from last week. Do want to say congrats to our winner. The first week, we filled it up in like the first 48 hours. I know the TV in the first 48. This is a little bit different, but we did fill it up in the first 48, and Yamaha Sled 2000 took it down with a score of 177.18. That's the only look back that we're going to do on this show beyond what we talk about when we get to the new games. But I think just looking at this real quick, Hoop, it was a Richardson lineup, Alvin Kamara, Mixon, Godwin, Tyreek, Neighbors, Ertz, Yoshi, and then Bears D. Kind of just used the chalk to their advantage, but some unique pieces within it. What do you see with this lineup?
Yeah, I mean, I like seeing lineups like this win GPPs, which, this is a GPP, obviously. Nothing crazy. I mean, you look at this lineup, is there anything you look at and say, oh my gosh, like that was a crazy off the wall play? How did you get there? It's like a pretty straightforward lineup, like naked Richardson, which is obviously totally fine. The guy can go off on his own, and he did. I mean, through the bombs to Pierce, but obviously Pierce was like point something percent owned on the slate. Then you got Kamara, Mixon. A lot of people were on the Houston passing. He just went with the Houston rushing game, and Mixon had a big game. Godwin, Tyreek were probably the two most popular wide receivers, I'd say, overall on the slate. I mean, ownership here is a little bit different with Godwin at 15, but around the industry, he was higher owned than that. Neighbors have shown as a good option. You know, a cheap tight end in Ertz, Yoshi, obviously the mega chalk, and then Bears defense in a good spot at home against Tennessee. So, I mean, a lineup like this, anyone could put this together. You don't need to be some genius and someone that's going to take all these crazy stands and play a bunch of 0.5% owned guys. This is a pretty straightforward lineup. And I like seeing lineups like this win just a couple pivots, like the Joe Mixon. Again, a lot of people are on Houston passing. He's on Houston rushing, and that's really the main difference in this lineup versus a lot of different lineups, around the industry.
Yeah, and I would say that too. That's funny you said that. Of course, you would like it. I mean, there's a lot of good guys in there. It's what you always say, and what I'm a big proponent of as well is it's not who you play, it's how you play them. And I'm not the guy that, Yamaha Sled is probably not playing in the Mega Millionaire Maker for 44.44, but it's just showing the types of lineups in week one. This would have won the Mega Milli in week one. It's 177 points. We saw yesterday, Fantasin won it with 171. But just looking at this, people just go chalk, 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 chalk. It's like 6%, 6%, 5%. Only some mini correlations, not overstacking it or doing anything crazy. So I loved your call outs there of that. Shout out the Yamaha Sled. You got all the prize money and more. That was a 1,000-person rake-free Ship It Nation Lister League to start the season. If you want to get in on this one for this week, there's less than 1,000 spots left. We were at 531 to start the show, already at 558 just from announcing it on here. So get in now. Go to ToeTagginTambo on X. You can find the link there. You're in the first look, so you're in the right place. We appreciate it. Let's get into week two. No wasted time on this show. We're going to break it all down for you. You will see we're on our site, Ship It Nation. Bring up the stone. It's here, and it's just a shell. So we're not using this. This is kind of what we're going to use next week too, and just breaking it all down. Last week, we gave it all away for free, but you guys know we will highlight the injury risks. We will talk about cash consideration, high upside GPP plays, and we'll talk about the games. The target game last week, there was only one actually in week one. And if you watched the review show yesterday, it was the game you needed. It was the game you had to have. It was the Baker double stacks with the Ertz, and then you can fit in all the running backs in these other sneaky games and target spots. So I think that was a good call. But let's dive right in, Hoop. The first game of the week, and it's in the order that DraftKings puts them across the top. So if you are following along, we like doing that as another little added touch. But the first one, Hoop, is Raiders and Ravens. And before I kick it to you, our guy Sean, lots of good people in here. I'll bring them all up in a second. But week two, play every player that let us down. Do you have any overarching thoughts on that? Because week two is typically the opposite situation, and game one couldn't be a better spot to start. Zamir White let a lot of people down on the main slate, and Mark Andrews really let a lot of people down as Isaiah Likely just completely ate his lunch on that first game to kick off the season on Thursday Night Football.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few spots that I'm interested in. As I was watching the games on Sunday, guys that kind of busted and looked a little rusty that I'm like, all right, I'm getting back on them week two. It's really nobody in this game. As we get to the games or some more of these games, there's going to be spots where, guys did not perform well week one where I want to be on them for week two. We'll talk about those when we come across them. But this game specific, and I think there is some merit to it. I mean, a lot of offenses just did not look good week one. I mean, a lot of these guys aren't playing in preseason. So that was week one's kind of like their first dress rehearsal essentially of the season. So certain situations in this game, though, I'm not really looking at stuff like that. Like the Raiders offense looked really bad against the Chargers. They're 10-point underdogs now here. Not much for me. And Zamir White, like I know people played him last week. I didn't have a ton of him. I don't think I'll be going to him here. Madison, like not a ton of interest. The play that stands out to me in this game, though, for sure, right out of the gate would be Derrick Henry. If you watched our Thursday night show, I did not love him on the showdown slate. And yeah, he got the touchdown right out of the gate, but he didn't do anything else the rest of the game because they're kind of trailing. And that was what I specifically talked about on that show. Like if they're trailing, Justice Hill is going to have a much bigger role. And that was indeed the case. Now they're 10-point favorites at home. Multiple touchdown upside here for sure. And these are the spots that I think they brought Derrick Henry in to kind of take a little off Lamar Jackson if they are playing with a big lead. So I think Derrick Henry is clearly the premier play here at 67 on DK, and probably like him even more on FanDuel at 75. I mean, definitely stands out at 75. Lamar Jackson, can't imagine a lot of people are going to be on him here because of the 10-point spread and Derrick Henry lurking in the background. And yeah, like I get the Mark Andrews bounce back, but man, he looked like really slow. Was not effective at all. Obviously, likely looked really good, and likely did kind of line up in the slot and stuff too. It wasn't like he was fully at the tight end position, but I have legitimate concerns, I think, around Mark Andrews. Now, could he bounce back here in a big way? Yeah, sure. I wouldn't be surprised, but of all the guys that looked kind of bad week one, he's one that I still have some concerns with. Even the ball that he caught was like a 3-yard kind of out pass. Like he just immediately fell to the ground. Like he couldn't even make a move. It looked really rough. So yeah, the standout play here first look wise for me will be Derrick Henry on both sites, but specifically FanDuel.
Yeah, I like that call out. I think that's the other thing too. Like if people don't know, I know for me at least, and I think it's the same for you, this is a true first look. Like I don't look at too much yesterday. Mondays are very busy, content days, breaking it all down, usually later in the week. But with the content that we do, this is perfect. That's why I love this show, because I get to dig in and just get some of the thoughts that I sort of soaked in over the last 48 hours since Sunday, and even the stuff from last week. Like you said, Andrews catching that ball and just sort of falling on it. Likely, is he going to stick with the ownership after a big first week? But one thing you mentioned, like Derrick Henry, I know it was a showdown slate, but he was $9,000 in a worse spot. Now, like you said, I think that's an interesting one to go to. Also, Brock Bowers, quite involved. And if they're going to be down to Derrick Henry, Mark Henry, wrestling reference for those that know it. But if it's going to be Derrick Henry that gets the job done, I think that you could see a guy like Bowers coming back the other way. I don't think you need to go crazy with anything here, but I think, if you want to play Mark Andrews for a bounce back, take a shot. It would get more interesting if likely actually did get a bunch of the ownership, and then you can double up where you're getting leverage at a very, $200 more and in the same spot, same team, same game, same everything, same position. So that would make it a little more interesting. But for me, I'm with you. I like the Derrick Henry call both sites, and I kind of like Brock Bowers on the other side. Let's move on. Let's go to Chargers, Panthers, and break this one down here. Chargers, decent total. I know last week, their defense came through, a lot like that, but some other guys did not come through. J.K. Dobbins came through in a big way, though, so maybe you want to start with him and then bring it over to the Panthers side. I was teasing you in title yesterday. If you had not teasing you guys, I was mentioning to you, if you had seen this, I was sort of laughed about it, was the graphic of Bryce Young. Usually it's like, if you had Peyton Manning's mind and Tom Brady's arm and all that, you could get the top quarterback. This was the opposite version, making fun of Bryce Young, saying, if you were building the worst quarterback, Bryce Young's mind, Bryce Young's arms, Bryce Young's legs. It just kept going on. But what's your thoughts on this one, Chargers and Panthers?
Yeah, it has to be one of the, I'd say, least appealing games for week two. I mean, again, this is a true first look for me, but second game we're covering, and I know this is going to be like a top 3 unappealing game for me on the slate. You know what the Chargers want to do under Jim Harbaugh? They want to win, grind it out, nasty type games. If the running backs are effective, they're going to continue to give it to them. Dobbins looked good, but the concern I have is still only 13 touches like in that game. Like that's not a big number, but the matchup's good. They're almost touchdown favorite, and the price is pretty fair. So he's got to potentially look at it. Need to do a little digging on him. Hayden Hurst is still cheap at $3K, kind of stands out, but these wide receivers, I just don't see the upside with them in this offense. Like Joshua Palmer is a popular play on FanDuel. He's still cheap. This Lad McConkey caught a touchdown. He's cheap-ish on FanDuel at 57, but a lot of risk, I think, with the Chargers offense all year long. I don't think it's going to be just this week, all year long. And then the Panthers were an absolute disaster. I know a lot of people kind of projected them to be a little better last year, but man, they got their asses kicked against the Saints, and it was never close. And Bryce Young looked like all-time bad. Could they bounce back here? I guess, but man, I just don't know after that performance last week. So very unappealing game on the slate for sure.
I will say this, Chargers D will pick up steam. I've already seen just a little early on stuff here where it looks like people are talking about that, and they're going up against the Panthers. Saw what the Saints just did, dropping 47 points on them. So the other angle, I guess, would be as if, the one spot I would consider going back to the well is kind of like running this like a bit of an onslaught and just hoping it is the Panthers are that bad and the Saints 2.0 sort of thing happens, because I might even skip over, especially if these guys get popular in here, but you could go back to Herbert, Palmer from last week, McConkey. You could just set it up that way if you wanted to, but again, not a lot of interest. I just think if the Chargers do smash, you could see it where it might come through the air, as opposed to people just assuming J.K. Dobbins is going to do exactly what he did last week again. So don't hate that. Nothing really I love on the Panthers side, so we'll save it because we want to keep this rolling for the games we want to spend more time on. Let's go to the team that put it on the Panthers last week, which is the Saints, and they're in Dallas at the Cowboys. We've got 7-point underdogs for the Saints hoop, and team totals pretty much solid, especially Cowboys here at home. But thoughts on this one, Saints Cowboys?
Yeah, it's one thing that definitely stands out. The team total for the Cowboys, it's solid, 26.25. So, between 26 and 27 real life points. And a lot of, obviously we had a ton of success last year with Dak Prescott. Just the spots for Dak last year were just so good. And I'd say the industry was slow to react to it. I mean, we were kind of, I don't mean to sit here and pat ourselves on the back, but we're ahead of the curve on Dak. Tony Pollard all season long, without Zeke there last year was, hey, it's going to be Tony Pollard. It's going to be Tony Pollard week. It's going to be Tony Pollard week. How many times did we hear that last season? It was going to be Tony Pollard week, and there ended up being like 0 Tony Pollard weeks, and we were playing Dak and just printing. Different situation, obviously, this year, but I like the price. 67 on DK for Dak, 77 on FanDuel, very fair. Didn't need to really do anything this past week. He's always better at home. And you have obviously the CD Lamb thing, right there, 8,800 on DK, 9,100 on FanDuel. You have Jake Ferguson, who would be my second favorite.
He's going to be out, I think, Hoop. Remember, there's I just pulled that. Obviously, this is the thing, but they say he could play despite, I know his MRI went well, but he obviously had a knee injury over the weekend, so we'll have to wait and see on him.
Hasn't been ruled out, so we'll see. If not, we get an even cheaper tight end that I would potentially play. Like, he likes to use his tight end. So whoever is tight end 1 for Dallas, interested in them. And then if Ferguson's out, I think you do get a little boost to like Cooks and maybe a guy like Tolbert. So it's going to be nice with the Cowboys when you want to play them this year, because you can kind of just avoid the running back situation with Zeke and Rico. You're just going to be looking for the pass catchers. Seems like a letdown spot to me for the Saints after just absolutely, manhandling the Panthers. Now you have to come to Dallas and play the Cowboys, who looked really good. I mean, that's one thing I was definitely wrong about. I thought the Browns would manhandle the Cowboys. It was reverse. The Cowboys beat the hell out of them. But the Saints, this seems like a letdown spot a little bit for them, traveling to Dallas after the big week 1 win. So I probably don't have a ton of interest. And the Cowboys defense, man, looked really, really good. I know they're going against like Deshaun Watson and whatnot, much different, but is Derek Carr, all that good? I don't know. So doesn't seem like a great spot for the Saints here. It's going to be Dak to CD and his pass catchers for me in this one.
You can always get to this price on FanDuel, 4,600, because it's like whatever you can spend down on FanDuel too. I'm just saying, but on DraftKings, it's tough these days to get to 4K when you can just get there with so many other defenses at a lot cheaper price. I did just read, it's actually from an hour ago, that they said Ferguson is still believes he can play this week upcoming, but it was a sprained MCL. So we definitely have to wait and see. But I don't hate kind of your call there with some of this stuff. Shaheed is a boom bust type play, but Kamara had a pretty good week. Even if it is a letdown though, like Dak to CD, some of this stuff, if we do get a cheaper tight end or if Ferguson plays, Olave on the run back, something along those lines, I could see where this game still does go back and forth. It just still could be the Cowboys putting up 35 and the Saints getting done at 20, 21 or something. They still get crushed, but Olave has a big game or something like that. So I don't hate this spot. I think we're going to find better, but I think it's an interesting one nonetheless, because some of these other games are going to get targeted more. And I think this next one, Hoop, people are going to be very comfortable going right back to the well after what they just saw. The Lions, it wasn't like it was crazy on that what was it, Sunday Night Football game? Yeah, but still showed some stuff there where the Rams could find their way around it on them. So I don't know, the Bucs and the Washington game kind of went off and it was a must-have, but Bucs, Lions, I'll kick it over to you. Both decent team totals. Lions favored by 6 at home.
Yeah, so in the opening or early on, we kind of talked about guys that looked like crap week 1 and busted. And then maybe looking for them week 2. And yeah, you're highlighting the guy right now that I think that applies the most for me this week is Amon-Ra St. Brown for sure. 8,100 on DK, 9K on FanDuel. He did not look good. I mean, he definitely did not look good. Didn't get a ton of opportunity. There wasn't a ton of volume going his way. They got the lead and they wanted to run the ball. That's what Dan Campbell's always going to want to do. If they get a lead, he's going to see if he can run it. So they didn't have a ton of opportunity. I think this is the perfect bounce back spot for a guy like Amon-Ra St. Brown at 8,100 on DK. As predicted, Jameson Williams, I think, is going to have a monster season. Fine playing him too, but if deciding between who you want to play, the Lions pass catchers or the Lions wide receivers, I think it's going to be an Amon-Ra St. Brown week for sure. Even Laporta, I think you can take a look at, and the price tag on Laporta looks big on FanDuel again. Like there's not many tight ends. I haven't looked at all the pricing over there, but 7,900 is 8K last week. If he's like the standalone expensive option over there on FanDuel, I want some exposure to him. They're projected to score 28 points. That's definitely slate high. The thing with the Lions, they have a lot of different ways to get there. So it is somewhat risky. They have the 2 running backs. I mean, Gibbs and Montgomery can both go off. You got Amon-Ra. Now you have the emergence of Jameson Williams. He's going to have a lot of big weeks this year, and Sam Laporta. So if you are playing Jared Goff teams, I probably want exposure to him with all these guys just because there's so many different ways to go about it. But the Amon-Ra bounce back spot, I think, is really solid on the Bucs side. Again, it's a tough spot for them, I think, heading to Detroit, playing the Lions. They beat them in the playoffs quite easily. The one that definitely stands out, though, is Chris Godwin. Still cheap, 6K on DK, 6,200 on FanDuel. He looks fully back. I mean, he looked really, really good, and he's just a perfect complement to like Baker Mayfield and what he wants to do. He just gets open. And Baker's always looking to him. You can always play Mike Evans. I think Mike Evans is just one of those guys that should always be in tournament consideration because of the multiple touchdown upside that he has. So yeah, definitely Godwin, Evans on the other side, but it should be a good game. Amon-Ra bounce back definitely stands out.
Yeah, this game will not end up being sneaky because this is what people are talking about. And the other thing too, Hoop, is, and just so you know, I put your boy Amon-Ra as the thumbnail today. I knew you'd like that one on the way in. Not only is he team SHIPIT, he's got the color scheme to match, but he's your boy. He's the Lions, and really a big bounce back candidate at 8,100. I don't think it was anything he really did wrong as much as just didn't set up. That game just didn't set up for him when they had guys like Jameson making plays. They were able just to run it down their throat. Even look at the overtime. Literally just, okay, if you're going to let Montgomery just jam it down your throat every 5 minutes, you're going to give him those yards, we will just take this thing in a walk-off, and good for your boys. But I think that's sort of the setup here. I like this side of the stack at least a little bit more this week. So I think this is the way to go. The other thing, though, is Godwin is going to get steamed huge. He just has to. Like, look at what Cooper Kupp just did to the Lions last week. It was all over them. So I do think one interesting way, I know our guy Jay Steele was just in the chat. He talked about the Lions double with J-Mo and Sun God and run it back with Godwin. I think I'd think about someone else maybe too. Like Evans is expensive, but Cade Otton is another one. Kind of liked him a little bit last week. Didn't really crush, but remember Colby Parkinson was getting it done against these Lions as well. So I think he had 4 for 47, could have had a touchdown there. Like that at 3,600. If you think of last week using this exact team, this is what these shows are all about, trying to put things together and really focus on it from a DFS perspective. This is not going to be your snap counts and we grinded the tape all morning show. We're not against that. We're just saying it's not really what we do or what we've needed to do to find success playing DFS. And that's what our community is about. But last week it was Baker, Evans, Godwin, just run Ertz on the other side. And it wasn't that Ertz had a huge game. It was like that was a way just to say, you know what? I'm not going to run McLaurin. It really reminds me a lot of that. It's like, here is your Baker. It's Goff. Here's your Evans. It's Amon-Ra. Here's your Godwin after week 1. Good stat line, everything that looks solid, fair price. Too cheap probably, J-Mo. And then Cade Otton becomes your Zach Ertz because Godwin is playing the Terry McLaurin role. If you just use that exact game last week. So just setting it up a little bit differently, I think you can get away with it. There's obviously so many ways that you can go within a game with this type of total, this type of environment, everything that's setting up. So this will not be a sneaky game, but it could be a target game. We'll have to wait and see. Obviously, we'll have the Stone updated as the week goes on and break all that down. For those of you that don't know, joining for the first time, this tool is the Stone. We brought it out here. Our guy Degenerate75, shout out to him. He brought it over during the merger. We've got it for the main slate. We've got it for Showdown. We've had a lot of success just in week 1, but the target game last week was the Tampa Bay Washington game. We fill all this out. It makes it very easy to keep everything in one place. Let's move on, Hoop. We're going to go to the Colts, Packers, but before we do that, just want to see, so almost 600 people now that are into the rake-free league. So just again, I'll pull it up one more time for you guys so you can see it. Go on X at ToeTagginTambo. It's rake-free. DraftKings made it bigger. It's a very balanced structure. It's a $5, 5 max. Play 1 in it, play 3 in it, play all 5. It's up to you. I would play all 5. You can get $1,000 for first, up to $100 for 9th through 12th. Very balanced in between. $10 for a min cash. And we're going to keep rolling this thing. If you guys are going to keep filling it right now, just looked almost over 600. It was 598. I was pretty close. So we'll hop back into the game by game here, but just want to get you guys set up. If you have questions, throw them into the channel and we'll get at them as we can. Just trying to see here. Share this tab. We should be good. All right, back to this one. Hoops of Colts, Packers. And we've got, okay total on it. Nothing too crazy, though. Not like what we were just talking about. So anything here, Colts, Packers, Richardson. Didn't get that much of a price boost. Some thoughts there? Anything you got on this one?
Well, I guess the big news is Jordan Love. They haven't officially ruled him out yet, but you can't imagine that he's going to be the quarterback. It looks like it's going to be Malik Willis, which is a massive downgrade for their entire offense because he freaking sucks. We have a lot of these Packers wide receivers that are going to have big upside if Love's in there. We saw Jaden Reed go off last week 1. Christian Watson has a big play upside. But if Willis is in there, this is just a very tough team to get to in any regard. Josh Jacobs had a down game as well. Their offense likely struggles, and that's indicative of the team total sitting at 18, a little below 19.
Just real quick to help you through it, and so you can stay online with what's actually going to happen, is they're not going to put him on IR. It's just 18 hours ago or whatever, but we'll start Willis at quarterback and expected to miss 3 to 6 weeks. So again, we'll update this as the week goes on. It's not that we didn't adapt. We just put this in for what it is when we first put it out, but we'll have it all adjusted and more, but hopefully that helps you take it over from there. It looks like it's going to
with him in, it makes most of this offense like unplayable. So it's pretty easy. On the Colts side, you're going to be able to play Richardson any week you want. I mean, probably matchup proof. We saw it last week. The dude can just get there in so many different ways. 6,800 on DK, 85 on FanDuel, always in play. Michael Pittman Jr. is the guy you can look to as a bounce back candidate. Was not great week 1. Pierce got all the work done, obviously there. Pittman, I think, is a guy to get in a bounce back spot. And man, he was on that Millie team that finished 5th for me. So anything from him this week could have potentially propelled me. But I think he bounces back here. This week, 66 on DK, and then the 64 on FanDuel is probably even better. Josh Downs is questionable, so that's something to monitor. If he does play, it's going to be a hit to Pierce and Mitchell. It shouldn't affect Pittman all that much. And then their tight ends, I don't know. They have so many different guys. I have like zero read on that situation, but they're all cheap. So if you want to go there, you can get a cheap tight end. But for me, the premier play in this game is going to be the Pittman bounce back. Another guy that wasn't great week 1. I think he could do well here week 2.
Yeah, and I want to talk about one thing real quick with this game because I think it'll become more apparent as the week goes on, just trying to get an early feel for what ends up happening. And I'm not sure. I mean, Anthony Richardson has to still rate out well when we get to there because he only went up $500. I know people are definitely going to be wanting to hop back on. It's not like he's going to be chalk or anything, but Adonai Mitchell was 3,800 last week, had 2 touchdowns that were basically walk-ins that he got overthrown on, that I'm sure Richardson tries to make that right. I love your Pittman call. I don't think I would go back to Alec Pierce as much, but I got to say, the thing that stands out the most, especially when the news becomes 100% official with Malik Willis in, is people are going to like the Colts D at 3,300. Yeah. And then to go with that, do you remember what Saquon Barkley just did to this Packers defense? He just absolutely shredded them. So I wonder, we'll find out again as we get closer to the end of the week. Is it going to be people that are more interested in Jonathan Taylor playing the Saquon Barkley role and just smashing this team and even pairing them up with the defense? Or are there, it could be a mix, or are there going to be people that say, you know what, forget that. If that becomes popular, I'm going right back to the well on Mitchell. I'll get Pittman in there, who didn't have the greatest first game, and let's just keep rolling with our boy, Anthony Richardson. Thoughts on that?
Yes, people are going to roll with Richardson. I think Richardson will keep Jonathan Taylor's ownership low a majority of the season. There are going to be some spots where if the price comes way down on Taylor where people are like, all right, now I'm going to get on the Taylor side, but still pretty expensive on DK at 77. Maybe on FanDuel's where they play him at 82. That's a relatively cheap price tag, I think, for him. But just to kind of keep it generally speaking, like I think it's more weeks than not, it's going to be people playing Richardson and the pass catchers over Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah, one interesting thing. So Tim Peterson says here is also too, if there's going to be rain in Green Bay, that's another thought that people may just get after it that way. But my interesting note was going to be then what about this triple? Again, very early in the week, but if honestly, you could have played Hurts and Saquon and almost got them both there last week. And Hurts was I know it was a showdown game, but Hurts was way more expensive. Saquon was more expensive. These prices are fair to be able to play both together. There can be checkdowns. You can kind of man the whole end zone, if you will, of two guys that are very likely to just run it in. And then you get some of these guys throughout. So you could run those two with the pass catcher. But one interesting take for me, especially if it's raining and wet and whatever, I know it's only a 22 total, but someone's got to score the points. I like Anthony Richardson, Jonathan Taylor, and the defense, and just run a little triple stack that's completely unconventional, but conventional at the same time. Running back and D is always very popular. We get that, but why not just run a quarterback? The same guy that you could run naked, you could still run him with Taylor and Colts, and he could toss him one, and they could each run one in, and he could get some rushing yards, and the D could just pound from there, which leads to even more of them. So just little things like that when I'm looking at a first look to get some ideas. If nothing else there, Hoop, you can just take us into this next one. It's going to be Browns at the Jags. Again, nothing crazy that stands out to me right off the hop, but maybe you've got some more thoughts on this one.
Yeah, I mean, a very rough first game for the Browns offense, and I think it could be something that we see all season. Deshaun Watson looked like complete shit. Now, again, the Cowboys defense is good. They played really well, but, man, it was not encouraging what we saw out of Deshaun Watson. The one thing that stands out to me a little bit on the Brown side is Cooper still got 9 targets. I mean, only 2 receptions because I'm sure a lot of inaccurate passes. I didn't watch much of that game, but I'm assuming a lot of inaccurate passes. And Njoku is listed as questionable. So if he were to miss, it would be a little more consolidated. Akins, cheap tight end that we can potentially look at. But, man, Browns are going to be a tough team to get to here. Pretty low team total on the Jaguars side. That Brian Thomas Jr. Kid looked pretty solid. It appears to be like the number one. Like that's where Lawrence was going, and not a household name still. So I think we can get him at pretty low ownership, 4,800, and then 58 on FanDuel, and then Trevor Lawrence at 5,700 on DraftKings is a cheap price tag. A guy that has rushing upside, passing, obviously multiple touchdown passing upside. And then Evan Ingram is always a tight end to look at. So maybe some Amari Cooper on the Brown side, maybe some Akins. And then for the Jaguars, that Brian Thomas definitely stood out to me, Ingram. And then I could potentially play some ETN.
Yeah, Dallas dropped, 33 on him, I think? And, man, this is probably a trap, but I'm going to get trapped. Like, I just already know it, because when you're putting T-Law at 5,700 with Christian Kirk at 55, Brian Thomas, who you just talked about, at 48, some, home run upside with a guy like Gabe Davis, maybe he's washed, I don't know. Evan Ingram, still just 5,400. Njoku, feared high ankle sprain, probably out. Means you got a guy like Akins at the other side at 3,000. We've seen him do stuff when he was a Texan too. He can definitely get in the mix, but I'm with you on Amari Cooper, just 6,200. This is going to be tough. It's not like I'm targeting this game as my main. It's only a 40-something point total, but I talked about this all last year on these shows, and I'll hit it again for new viewers and people just watching, but everyone gets confused with the low total. Like, if they get to 40 points, that's still a lot of fantasy points to go around, especially where some of this stuff could be more condensed. Like, if you're just seeing Kirk, Thomas, Ingram, and call it a day, and you don't even mess with these other guys, and you skip over ETN because you're using Lawrence. I don't really have that many guys from that side. I put Lawrence with at least 2 of Kirk, Thomas, and Ingram. You can do it in Shiptimizer on our site. You can just set up a little group, anchor Trevor Lawrence, put the other guys in, and put at least 3 to 4, and then you're good. If you want to just make sure you get 2 guys with them, 3 total. So you get him anchored with 2 more to make 3 total. Running it back, you can then do it again. If you're playing Trevor Lawrence, use Amari Cooper in those ones, or get some secondary stacks going. Like, you can definitely run Cooper with Brian Thomas or Christian Kirk and maybe not need their quarterback just on the price point. I prefer to play Amari Cooper with Lawrence in the lineup. I'm not going to be on Watson. I think someone said it best, too, and you were kind of hinting at it. How long do we go until we get the, my arm hurts from Deshaun Watson because he's already guaranteed all that money and just decides, you know what? over it. It's not looking good. It just makes me look worse. I already got my money. My arm hurts.
Yeah, and ready to just chill. Yeah, I mean, it's I wouldn't be surprised because he looked terrible. He looked terrible. But it's a good point you brought up with the Trevor Lawrence stuff, though, because anytime you can get like these are good. I mean, he's a high upside quarterback. Christian Kirk, high upside wide receiver. Evan Ingram, high upside tight end. You're stacking this entire offense, and it's cheap. You're still able to play the studs of the slate. So you get a full offense stacked, and you're also able to add on some studs in this slate. So that's a good point on the Jaguar stuff.
Anytime you can get it condensed like that, that's what we're looking for. And that's why, people make fun of me about the Mahomes thing. Is Mahomes better than Lawrence? By an absolute mile, millions of miles. I'm saying that's not what it's about, though. People forget there's a salary-based game that we're playing. There's a roulette wheel of options, and Mahomes can make anybody look good and this, that, and the other. So that's kind of what it is. Let's see. Usually off his dad Friday.
Yeah, I mean, I get that. Yeah, I mean, again, everyone has shit going on. Like, I understand that, but like, he sucked. Like, and you're an NFL quarterback. Like, you get out there and play that bad, you're going to get the criticism, especially with the contract and his history. Like, it was just not good. But he's got stuff going on, but a lot of these dudes do.
I mean, obviously super sad, very unfortunate. A friend and father pass away, but at the same time, you go run the news and it's like another accused sexual assault case and all stuff. I'm not here about that. It's not about that. Just saying at the end of the day, we're only here to focus on DFS and what happened within the game. And that's what we saw. Obviously people have stuff going on. And in this case, it's extremely sad, but for the overall, I'm just saying that's why I would prefer the Lawrence side and just use somebody as a run back. Use Cooper, use Akins. If you believe in Jerry Jeudy or something, go ahead. Ford, who had a late touchdown. I don't know if you even want that. So for me, just going to be mostly on the Jag side. Let's move on, Hoop. Let's go to 49ers at the Vikings. 49ers just smashed last night. We talked through that yesterday, so maybe start there and then roll from that spot.
Yeah, they looked really, really good. I mean, a lot of people had high hopes for the Jets, including me. I thought they would be able to hang in that game, and then Christian McCaffrey gets ruled out, and they're like, all right, the Jets have a legitimate chance. 49ers fucked them up. Like, there's no other way to put it. Like, they ruined any plans that the Jets had last night. The Jets could not do anything whatsoever. And it just makes me wonder, are they going to, give Christian McCaffrey another week off? Like, we'll have to see, because if McCaffrey is going to miss this game, Jordan Mason will be the highest owned player on this slate. And there's no doubt about it. 5,200 on DK, 5,500 on FanDuel. Everyone just saw what he did. They weren't using anyone else. It was Jordan Mason, 28 carries, 1 reception. He was the guy, and he looked damn good while being the guy. Very impressive performance from him. So that's important news to monitor. But the flip side of that, if Christian McCaffrey does play, you have to imagine his ownership tanks a little bit, because people still got that Mason performance in their head, and they're going to figure Mason is going to have some sort of role, and they might be right. So that's a very interesting situation to monitor, I think, throughout the week. Like, if McCaffrey's ruled out, Mason's probably the highest owned guy on the slate. If McCaffrey does indeed play, I think we might be able to get McCaffrey at some of the lowest ownership he's probably ever had in the last couple seasons. Debo, I think Ayuk. I got people are making fun of the way.
Ayuk.
I always fuck up his name. I always mess up.
Ayuk.
Ayuk. I always mess up his name. People are hitting me up in the chat yesterday about it. He's a guy I think that could be a bounce back candidate this week too. I mean, did not look good. I don't know what the snap count ended up being. I know a lot of people were talking about him maybe not getting his full complement. But I think he's a bounce back candidate this week. Kittle is always a tight end you can play. The reason I like these 49ers this week is I think, talked about on the Sunday show, Sam Darnold is competent enough at the position, I think, even against a good defense, to move the ball a little bit. And they didn't need a ton of it. He looked good in the first half, and they're beating the hell out of the Giants and, kind of just shut it down. But I think he is competent enough to move the ball for the Vikings, which really makes me initially like the 49ers offense here. Justin Jefferson, 8,300, 89 on FanDuel, cheap price tags for him. Again, the spot's not great, don't get me wrong, but if you're going to play a lot of 49ers, I have no interest going to Jefferson here whatsoever. So he would be the one that definitely stands out as a run back. But think it's, again, a really good spot for the 49ers. Cheap price tags, too. I mean, 68 for Debo, 73 on FanDuel, 65 for Ayuk. I'm writing this down so I don't mess this up anymore. Ayuk. 65 for him, 7K on FanDuel. I think he's a fine play. And then, McCaffrey at the 87. That's pretty cheap for him. So very interested in the 49er stuff.
I think that's what I was trying to look at. I'm pretty sure they already said today that he's unlikely for week 2 again, but we'll see.
McCaffrey?
Yeah, we have to wait.
Yeah, then Mason's just, he would be the highest owned guy, by far.
Mason's going to be the chalk. Yeah, I mean, if he's in at 8,700, that's amazing. But it's probably going to just be Mason going for round 2, so he'll be very popular. We'll look at more stuff in this one when we get to later in the week because we'll know more on where the ownership's coming in at. Look for some pivots, some options that you can go to instead. But to your point, another way just to get after it would be trying to double down on Danny Dimes by going to a much better quarterback over the last couple of years. But just to say it, like if you're going in the same spot, same everything, if you go Purdy, Samuel, or Ayuk in one of Kittle, or just run both those guys, Jennings, whatever you want to mix in there. It's a little bit less condensed with these 49ers, but you can build it as if it is condensed by just picking your spots, skip over the chalk, just mix in 2 of Ayuk, Samuel, and Kittle with Purdy, double stack him, run it back with Justin Jefferson, call it a day, done. That's how I would look at it to me. I mean, Breece Hall, did run a little bit on top of them last night, did get some catches, stuff like that. But I think that was a lot more of a product of sort of the game setup and how Aaron Rodgers was sort of coming back, wanting to stay in the game. He's not wanting to go down on his first play again, all that. So he's using him a little bit more. That was just the game plan to mix it up. Aaron Jones, I guess he got in for a touchdown last week, but just overall, I would be way more interested in just getting back to the well here with Justin Jefferson. So that's all I got for that game. Let's move on to this next one. Seahawks Patriots hoop. Anything with this one that stands out for you? 2 pretty low totals. It's in New England. I don't know. There's just not much here for me. Ramondre was good last week. Kenneth Walker was good last week. Other guys were in the mix, but where are you at with this one early on?
It'll probably just be those running backs that I think are playable. Again, I don't know. This is Tuesday afternoon. I don't know how much I'll have of each, but I would say at this point, they're definitely both playable options. Ramondre on FanDuel under 7K, that definitely stands out. 6,900, very cheap price tag for him. Kenneth Walker looked good in the second half. Probably fine with him. I just don't see myself playing pass catchers or quarterbacks.
Yeah, I'm with that too. Did you have a take on this one? I know it's not what it's about, but this about the 49ers.
Yeah, I mean,
Mason lying about it.
Yeah, I mean that's
very lying about it. He outed them. They said that he was the starter as of Friday.
Yeah, and I think it's probably pretty common practice. I think a lot of teams do this stuff, and he just kind of said the quiet part out loud. To be honest with you, got caught up in the moment, said the quiet part out loud, and I mean there probably should be some repercussions for sure. I mean they clearly knew. I don't care what Shanahan says. Like they knew McCaffrey wasn't playing as of Friday. Like I believe that for sure.
But there is a questionable status that exists. So is it really against the I mean, like my take is can't the 49ers just say, hey, he is questionable. He might get in there. I don't know. Yeah. And just leave it till game time. I don't know. Yeah. I just everybody freaks out about it and wants them sued and fined and all this. And I just don't understand. Like we had plenty of time to react to the news I only ever look at it as a fantasy player. I don't care about all the other stuff that everybody else gets in the mix. Like they have some control. You got nothing that you can do about it. Like the 49ers can do whatever they want. It sounds like they lied. Like Kyle Shanahan was over explaining himself in the room to run it back. But how could anybody ever find out? How would they know? Maybe he said to him, Mason, you will be the starter if McCaffrey can't go. And he took it as he knows that CMC ain't going because he's in the room with him. He's like, I got a pretty good feeling. Yeah. He ain't playing. So I'm going to be the starter. And he just said it on the spot like that. But I don't know. Like it's just tough.
I mean, it's kind of better for what we do anyway, that it played out like that. You
had all the time in the world. This is what I don't get. The worst argument. You had over an hour to react. Like, what's the problem? Like you can the bets get voided on McCaffrey. The worst was the Bet365 trying to change.
That's bull. So I'm usually not as reactive to that stuff at all.
You actually have time to use this to your advantage.
I happen to be on a sports book, just looking at stuff as it happened. So I was able to bet Jordan Mason top rushing yards in the game at plus 35-1. So I put $100 on it, returned $3,500. You can use this stuff to your advantage. If they announce that on Friday, probably just don't have the opportunity to react quick enough. In the fantasy stuff, like Mason would have been even more popular last night than he was, and you weren't able to get any sort of leverage on him. So can always use stuff like that to our advantage for sure. It's always going to be a word. It's always going to be a word battle, though. Like it's always going to be like a word battle. They can always go back and say we list him as questionable, like you said. Maybe we're going to start as of Friday. We're going to start Mason, and McCaffrey was just going to get mixed in a little bit. They could say that, and it would be game over.
Yeah, the chat was talking about Kenneth Walker's injury too, but it sounds like he'll be all right. So again, we'll keep an eye on that, but just got to see where that lands. Let's keep going. Jets, Titans. Man, I didn't see it last night, buddy. I mean, looking at all those guys, Breece Hall, sure, looked fine. What else did you see? Like Lazard, I know we made fun of it on the show, and I was making fun of you guys like Rodgers' boy. That was a classic Rodgers play. It happened to be Lazard that got it. The other touchdown, though, came from Tyrod at the end of the game. Garbage time. They just did not look sharp to me, and they were getting run all over. And funny enough, you were asking when the Pollard game would be. Not a bad week last week for him as a Titan. I think he got what was it, like 82 yards, a touchdown.
And the Jets, I mean, everyone talks about the Jets defense. Like, they could not stop the run. Now, am I endorsing Tony Pollard this week? Most likely not. Like, definitely not. But, man, that Jets run defense looked terrible. Jordan Mason, like, owned their asses last night. But the Jets, I think, are going to be an easy team for a majority of the season. Yes, Lazard did have the big game. Myself and Title liked him on the showdown slate. You were against a little bit. Yeah, I mean, it was the offsides play, and then Tyrod passed it to him, so it's not like a victory lap scenario by any means. But this offense is going to be Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson, and that was very clear last night. Very, very clear. And I think both playable this week and for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, if they fit in, I'm not spending a lot of time on these games. It's just if they fit in, one or the other, sure, land on them. If you wanted to try some stuff on this Titan side, I don't know. Our boy DFS Juice, he'll be back in the mix. He loves the Titans and Will Levis there, so maybe he gets it on the action. But I don't have any love for this game at all right now. Like I said, if you landed on Wilson or Hall, think they're going to be involved, you can play them. If you want to land on Titans, D and Pollard or something along those lines, I guess go there. But for me, I think there's a lot better spots we can get after. So let's move on to one of the other ones here. Giants at the Commanders. Again, modest total hoop, only right now sitting around 43.5. But your thoughts on this one? Tighter spread between the game. Daniel Jones did not look good last week, but Neighbors, is there. Robinson, maybe some other guys you could mix in on that side. And then, do we get a Terry McLaurin bounce back? Is it going to be somebody else? I don't know. What's your thoughts on this game?
It is Tuesday, but I have a feeling I'll be going back to the Daniel Jones stuff this week. It was not fun last week, but have to imagine after that performance, low ownership, and we all talked ourselves into it on Sunday morning. I just have a feeling I'm going to play him. 5,300, 69. We're going to like Neighbors again, cheap price tag. I think I'll probably be on him. I'm not endorsing him by any means, but I'm going to play him. Jaden Daniels is going to be playable, I think, every week. I mean, he looked like, Lamar Jackson Jr., however you want to put it. Like, he looked like the running quarterback that can just take off at any time. Wasn't even looking to pass, so it makes it really hard to play like McLaurin. I played a decent bit of McLaurin last week. I think it's going to be tough for these pass catchers, but Jaden Daniels, I think, can definitely get it done. 6,279 on FanDuel. Clearly, I think a play this week. He wasn't even looking to pass. He was just looking to go.
Yeah, it's also like what's going to happen. So it's because of Neighbors too. Here's Hoop, by the way. I'm drinking this Gatorade. I'm not endorsing it. I'm spinning the label to show it to you, but I'm not endorsing it. But I don't love Gatorade, but I'm drinking Gatorade. That's Hoop right now. But
right? It's so confusing.
Yeah, if you go Daniel Jones with Neighbors, even if you want to plug in somebody else with him, Robinson, Theo Johnson, whatever, and run it back with McLaurin, the issue, I think, is that you saw it. Should he bounce back? Yes, but Jaden Daniels wasn't even passing the ball. He was doing somersaults, dives, and flips.
Yeah. But the Daniel Jones thing last week, like when I brought him up, like, doing this for so long, sometimes you bring up plays to be discussed, and you hope that your co-hosts are like, dude, come on, man, don't do that. Like, that's a terrible idea. You don't want to play his ass. And then you kind of endorsed it. Title kind of endorsed it. Then we talked through it a little bit more, and we all kind of bumped it up a little bit more. And I was like, oh,
I use Gatorade, but people always say drink the Kool-Aid. Yeah. We were not only telling you, we weren't saying to put down that sugary drink. We were helping lift that cup up, lift that bottle up, and just keep drinking it, because we got you set up on that one in a bad way. But I could see like Jaden Daniels checking it down a bunch to Zach Ertz or something and get Neighbors in that way. I don't know. If you want to target up this game, I guess I could see 1-1-1 or 1-1-1, a couple of 2-1 stacks or something. But I just don't see right now, early in the week, that I love it. So I'll have to wait and see how things come out and shake down as the week goes on. Neighbors, I do like. I think even just using him as a one-off, that's another thing to remember. You don't have to stack up every game. Like Neighbors at 5,900, I guess I'll go back for 2 seconds, can just have a really good game. He can have an 8 for 105 and a touchdown. Daniel Jones can still suck. Terry McLaurin can suck again, and nothing else can happen, and you can just play Malik Neighbors. Like, that's all you have to do if that's what you like. You don't have to look to secondary and overstack and all of these other things. So got to get some timestamps changed here, it looks like, but at least for this side, we've got the right times in. So early skeleton shell of the stone over at shipitnation.com. You guys are checking out here now, but Hoop, let's talk about this one. This is the big boy game right here. There's no surprise, not going to be sneaky, but 24.5 in the Dome in Arizona. The Rams the game was fine. They played your Lions. They lost. I think it felt like they waited till the last drive of the game to find their offense. I know they were finding things throughout and picking their spots and whatnot, but it just felt like it could have been a 39, 37, 34 game. Let's use real numbers. 30. It could have been that. And it felt like they just left a lot of points out there is what I'm trying to say. So this one feels like we can go back to the well, and there's a ton of options on both sides that I'm seeing. What's your thoughts on this Ram Cardinals? Probably spend a minute here.
Yeah, big total here, close spread. I mean, kind of what you want for DFS if you're looking for some options. Cooper Kupp, Nakia is going to be out like way too cheap. I mean, I imagine he would get he's going to have some extreme ownership this week at 76. He looked just as good as he's ever looked, pre-injury and all that. And the connection with Stafford is just it's good. I mean, it's a really strong connection. Just so many free points for him. And he's just such a good job of getting that ball and just turning it up the field. Like, he doesn't bullshit around when he gets it. Like, he gets it, turns it up the field for some extra yards. Such a strong play. Kieran Williams is going to get all the work, strong option. Demarcus Robinson, I think, is fine without Nakia there. And then Parkinson got some decent work as well. 3,100, cheap tight end. On the Cardinal side, like, James Conner gets all the work at the running back position. Harrison busted. He's a guy I think that could bounce back here. Trey McBride. I don't even hate Kyler Murray. I know I shit on him quite a bit, but I think this is actually a relatively good spot for him at home against the Rams. I mean, the Rams defense is probably pretty good, I'd assume, but I could play some Kyler here just because I know I'm going to have a lot of pieces in this game. So a lot to look at on both sides. 4 o'clock window. This is by far going to be the most popular game. Could end up being the most popular game on the slate, to be honest with you.
Yeah, this is just because, again, early setup, and Kenny's a member, so he knows this stuff. But yeah, Tyler Johnson will be on there. He's 3,300, just a note. So we'll have that all updated and more as we go on. But like you said, just a ton of options within this game. And I mean, CK knows, right? Every game goes under that has a high total. Unfortunately, that's just not true. Lots of games that happens, and I know it kind of feels like it because it always feels like when you're on it, it happens to you, but that's just the way it goes. There's definitely these games where they go over and they're true to what they are. You can overstack this. You can play a bunch of different guys from either side. I think Stafford at only 6K. When you know Kupp is going to be popular, what do? Stafford, Kupp. Maybe you mix in Kieran Williams, who can catch those checkdowns. Maybe you mix in the cheap guy or one of the tight ends, set it up that way, and then run it back with someone different. You saw the Indy stacks last week. I mean, I know it's crazy how people got there, but Anthony Richardson to what was it? Pierce. They got away with this. So I think they still had Pittman in there who didn't even get there, but they had Pierce, Pittman, but then they had Diggs on the other side. That would be similar to Stafford, Kupp. Pick your cheap guy if it's Tyler Johnson or something. Hope that it gets there. If it doesn't, though, what about having Marvin Harrison Jr., who busted on week 1 on the other side versus a James Conner, a Trey McBride, some of the more popular plays that you would expect to see? So go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, Philly Phantom. Did you see Harrison running wide open for a deep tight end? Murray completely missed him. Like Murray is a shitty quarterback in the NFL. Like he is just not a good quarterback. Fantasy wise, he can make it happen. Like Murray, he might be honestly when you just look at the talent in terms of what he is as a quarterback and can you win football games with him? He's bottom 5 in the NFL. I'll stand by that comment. But for fantasy, we can take a look at him. Murray sucks. Bad quarterback.
Yeah, you always say that, and again, like I said, it's bad. If you can talk about guys all the time, like you did with Dak, all that stuff, people hate on you for it, but bad for real life football, good for fantasy. That's really what we care about. Like we always talk about, everybody. There's tons of shows out there that you can watch. They're going to break down the tape and the angles and the matchups and all that stuff. That's good. We let them do that for us. They can let us know, and we can take that information and apply it how we see fit. But all we're focused on is fantasy and the tournaments on DraftKings and FanDuel and winning the most money possible and putting you in the position to do the exact same. That's the ultimate goal. So that's what we're focused on. I think not to breeze past this one, but it's just not going to be sneaky. Like this is the spot. There's so many ways you can stack it. Everyone's going here. It's probably going to end up, again, I don't know. We'll see by the end of the week, but I'm guessing it's going to end up a target game because that's what it is. It is a target game. Find your pieces there and get different in other spots or find other pieces from other games that you can go to. Go ahead.
And the nice thing about a game like this is, yes, it's going to be popular, but when you have so many plays in one game, it will naturally get spread out a little bit. I mean, we have 2 tight ends. We have McBride. Parkinson caught 4 or 5 balls last week. We have multiple wide receivers on the Rams side. We have Marvin Harrison on the Cardinal side. You have 2 running backs in play. You have 2 quarterbacks in play. It will naturally get spread out a little bit.
Yeah, I got another point to make, but someone mentioned it, so I'll bring it up again. We're almost at 700 now, so just get in on the action. Only 1,500 can get in, but they made it 500 bigger than last time. It was 1,000 for week 1. It still is a balanced payout structure. It's a $5 5 max. It is completely rake-free. So go get in that. ToeTagginTambo on X. You guys can check it out there. And Hoop, one thing I want to add too, because this got to the afternoon slate, and we'll wrap this up sooner than later because we want to try and stick to an hour, but just to note, also late swap situations. It doesn't get talked about enough, but on a first look, I think it's good to bring up early, and then we'll catch on as the week goes on, I'm sure. But if you have some low-owned guys go off in the morning, some of those spots that hit for you, feel free to hop over to this game if you believe this is going to be the big game. You don't have to move on to it just because of the totals, I'm saying, but if you already get some low-owned stuff home in the morning and you're on, let's say, a Steelers, I'm using a bad example. You're on the Bengals Chiefs, but you like Rams Cardinals more. It's a better example to use, and then we'll segue. You can then get to it and just late swap over to this because now, even though these guys will be owned and be popular, if you love the spot, you already got your leverage built into your lineup for these stacks. So it's another thing to keep in mind. Late swap, a huge part of NFL DFS, of a lot of other sports in DFS that others don't use to their advantage. So certainly one you'd want to know for this NFL season. Let's go to this next one, Hoop. Burrow, another guy, did not look good in week 1, but Bengals at the Chiefs going into Arrowhead, tough spot. Usually a fireworks type matchup, though. Total's not bad, 21, 27, 48. I mean, it's up there. This could be a sneaky game. I don't know, maybe if you think Burrow can bounce back. I kind of like the Burrow bounce back, but what's your thoughts on this game here, Bengals Chiefs?
Yeah, I mean, one of the worst looking teams, obviously, in week 1. It looked really bad. And the only way I'd be interested in the Burrow stuff is obviously if T. Higgins, I think, is back in there. No updated information, I don't think, on him. But it's definitely a tough spot. I mean, they looked really, really bad. Now heading to KC. KC obviously looked great week 1. KC side is very, very clean, man, in terms of fantasy options. Pacheco's the guy. They're favored by 6. He's 6,900 on DK, 74. I think great play. Rashee Rice is just way too cheap. That's 6,700 price tag on DK. I think he's probably going to be an 8K guy moving forward. The DK price stands out as just being really way too low. Worthy had the big game. This guy's a stud. And then, the Kelsey conversation, probably pretty similar to like the Mark Andrews situation. Like he looked slow. He's 35, tight end position. Is he on the wrong side of the age conversation, I guess is the main point with him, but 62 on DK, 74. But you have to love Pacheco, Rice, and Worthy to stand out for sure this week.
Yeah, Joshua, I don't think a lot of people do use that, and it's not something that a lot of sites are talking about. It's not a secret. It's a lot of sites don't think about it from that perspective or ways to bring it up. As we've said many times on this channel, so subscribe if you do love content like this. These are all free shows, and we aim to make our free shows as good as the premium shows out there that will talk about it, because guys do know this stuff and spend a little bit more time on it. So we'll always tell you what we know, what we can get after. I think that's an angle. This is one thing. Obviously, I'm the guy, never Mahomes.
I didn't mention his name on purpose.
But you did say that it's really their offense is really obvious, or a line like that.
I didn't mention him.
So I will say I'm not walking it back, because I'm pretty much set on this for the long term. I've been on it forever. It hasn't hurt me. It was like, different guys that I used to fade in golf lineups. We're out here to talk golf, but just say you've done this too. You can get by with you never miss out. I haven't really missed out too much. But the thing about week 2 is the prices are still in check, right? Like Mahomes isn't up to 7,700 yet. Kelsey's not up to 7K. Rice isn't 7,500 yet. Pacheco hasn't crossed 7K yet. And in week 1, Worthy got the price bump, but in week 1, and they still have injury stuff, it was pretty, consolidated. It was mostly Pacheco, Rice, Worthy, and that was kind of it. Like, they didn't get the tight ends involved. They each got like 3 catches. It wasn't anything crazy. Gray did about as much as Kelsey. It just still is tough for me. So I get what you're saying, but the one thing to note and be fair about is they did have it in line pretty tight for week 1. Even the outsiders that got in, the Justin Watson, Samaje Perine, Juju Smith-Schuster had a shot in the end zone, Carson Steele, it wasn't for real. Like, it was one touch here, a couple targets there. It wasn't that bad. I guess I want to see what happens, like you said, with this other side, with the pass catchers here. Burrow, if you can get back to Jamar, go to Yoshi again, maybe Gesicki, who's still only 3,100. I don't hate that. And then just pick your guy. Probably would be Rice or Pacheco for me. But I like those two more than chasing on X Worthy, although he's incredibly good, super fast. It could be like, what's the guy, Achan, the guy from Miami, right? Like, you get him coming out there where everyone's, he can't do it again. He's really fast, but I don't expect to see that. He's got to give it all these guys that he's got to battle with. He might just be that good and that fast and that solid that he can do it again. So not going to shy away, but it's probably going to be more on this side with a run back if I get there. I do think this game is interesting in the afternoon. And to Joshua's point, other people not talking about this, is this example I gave here is also a situation where if this game is not getting the ownership, which I can't imagine it's getting the same ownership as the Rams Cardinals. I know it's only a Tuesday, and you're dead from the morning and your running back sucked, and whatever you had from the morning games is dead. Don't be leaving this game turned on. Like, why are you leaving this in your lineup? Because you're already dead. And now, even if they do stack up a bunch of points, you're barely squeaking a min cash, if at all, when you can switch to another game that still could go off and be the game and has much lower ownership to help you leverage up and at least sneak into a solid min cash or something where you can make up some of your money for the week. So just little ways to look at it. And then, let's end on this game. I will say FanDuel did bring the night game back again, but also they've chopped their contests in half already again. So we'll stick with it. We got a DraftKings Rake-Free Listener League. Let's finalize the slate here. The late game is Bears-Texans, but we're going to wrap up with Steelers, who did announce while we were on this show that it's going to be Justin Fields in week 2, at the Broncos, Bo Nix and the Broncos at home. Ugly-looking game on paper. What do you got, my friend?
No thanks.
We can
just end it. We can just end it at the previous game, because there's virtually nothing that interests me. Although I do see Donald Parham Jr. On the sheet here. The Broncos, not endorsing him, but it's nice to see his name at least. There's just nothing here for me. This is ugly. What
was the thing I was just going to say? Hey, if you go back to week 1 though. Where's it at here? What did he end up doing? He was a bit chalky, but yeah, 3 for 26 and a touchdown for Pitts.
Oh, I thought you said
no, for Pitts, who played against the Steelers. So you know, a little early season DVP, a little 1 week sample size. I'm high on those. Obviously not, but just look at it. 3,100. You want to play a one-off, but I'm with you. I don't really have anything for this one. If you guys want to check out more, you guys want to get involved in the action, make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube channel. Subscribe to this video. Leave a comment. It's about to end, so leave a comment at the end of the highest scoring DraftKings points quarterback of the week. It's raw points, not the best point per dollar, not the price point, whatever. Who is the highest scoring quarterback on DraftKings this week? Finalize it with this. Show you guys again. ToeTagginTambo on X. Follow, and then get in the tournament here. Get into our rake-free tournament. We started the show at, what was it, 531. We're up to 654. So climbing towards 700. The faster we fill this, the bigger it gets. Rake free is the key. That's going to do it for this one, guys. If you want to go check out the site, Ship It Nation, go to Join the Nation. We did leave our early bird pricing up under football. So 19 a week, 54 a month, $249 for the entire season, and then only $50 more, $299 if you want to add our optimizer, Shiptimizer for NFL. The monthly package is there, the weekly package is there, but that's going to do it, guys. For Hoop, for myself, ToeTagginTambo, we're going to set you up with these Monday Night Football winners on the way out. Let's ship it!